Welcome to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, FP Santangelo Jr., Russell Jackman on the phone, not sure where Vert is, and our special guest, Steve Travers. I'm hoping he's going to join us pretty soon. So he'll join us in the next segment. All right, let's see here. FP, tell us what we're going to talk about next segment.
Well, I think we got to talk about the NBA championship because we haven't touched on it as a podcast. So we'll go over that real quick. But then this morning, as of Tuesday, June 28th, the Senate Judiciary Committee is questioning the legality of Major League Baseball's antitrust exemption. So that's a big fancy way of saying, hey, baseball, you can't be a monopoly anymore.
Wow.
And we're going to come after you. This is both Democrats and Republicans coming together on this. So this is a pretty big issue. If you don't know, Major League Baseball is the only organization that's a monopoly and is granted a legal monopoly. So they can control everything. It's pretty huge. So we'll get into that.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think the reason for that was way back, like during the Federal League and all that, the early 1900s, players were just jumping from one team to another. And it was kind of the owners and the fans were kind of upset.
Well, I got a history lesson for you. How about that?
Oh, good. Okay. We definitely want to do that. All right. So Steve Travers asked me if we were ready, and so he'll be coming on in the next segment here. All right, this segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, still providing mortgage investments yielding over 6%, and they're probably going to actually raise that interest rate because interest rates are starting to go up. Secured by real estate, they've never lost any money for anybody, so you want to check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. And depending upon how long we're going to stay with Steve, I got a whole bunch of other stuff to cover. If we don't cover it this week, we'll cover it next week. All right, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here, along with FP Santangelo Jr., Russell Jackman, and Steve Travers is trying to...
Hey, do you hear me now?
Yes, I can. There he is. Hey, Steve, how are you?
Well, it just said use internet audio, so I guess that was
that was the problem. Okay, so Steve Travers, former baseball pitcher and best-selling author. Steve, I know that FP Santangelo kind of did a little bit of research on you there, and I know he was going to ask you some questions, but you have a new book that's coming out, or that came out already.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I don't know. I'm getting a call. Let me get rid of this.
Gotta love technology.
Yeah. So
this is a live show. You gotta love it.
Okay. Can you see me? Is everything okay? Because
that's okay. Go ahead. You know what? The audio is more important than the video. But go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Edward Brown. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I've been on with you many times, and always enjoy it. I do have a book. It is a new book that is out on Kindle. It is not actually in a paperback book or a bound book like my others. I've written something like 30. This is called Best Sports Writing Ever, and it is a collection of great articles and books about sports that I have read over the many years that I consider the best writing ever. And I've reviewed all these articles and books in one book.
And you being a best-selling author yourself, that's worth something.
Well, you're probably like me. When you were a kid, you probably loved reading sports.
Oh yeah.
You probably read the sports page and read sports books and baseball books, and became enamored of it. That's how we did it. I can remember in third grade when, on a Friday afternoon, they'd have let the kids all sort of mingle and we wouldn't do academics. I'd go to the library and find this book that was published in like 1939. Yeah. Great baseball players of all time.
It's funny. I still remember. I was just thinking about that, and same thing with like old football players. They talk about Bobby Lane and Bronco Nagurski. And even back to Jim Thorpe. Yeah.
Right. So I go way back with this stuff, and so the book I've done consists of a lot of boxing. Actually, some of the best writing was on boxing, especially in the early to mid-century. That was.
Well, actually,
with
if I'm not
boxing.
mistaken, I think boxing was the first that appeared on radio, the first sport.
It probably was in the early days of radio. You're talking about great boxing matches such as
Dempsey.
Tunney at Dempsey,
Mhm.
but there was also football. A lot of Notre Dame football
Yeah.
was on the radio. Notre Dame USC games, things like that, and that really, and then baseball, Babe Ruth and the Yankees, those games would be on radio, and that's really is what popularized the sport. And then eventually television came on, but the written word has always been sort of magic. It's funny. Jim Murray, who's one of my favorite writers, he grew up in Connecticut. He was in the 20s, early 30s, big fan of Babe Ruth. And he finally goes to a Yankee game. He's like in high school. It's his first Yankee game. And up comes Babe Ruth. And Babe Ruth hits a home run. And the crowd gets up. It was like a midweek game. It was not full. And the crowd cheered, but it wasn't that big a deal. And he rounds the bases and they, handshake to his teammates. And then Murray goes, I realized that the picture that the writers had given me of the Sultan of SWAT, the bombast of Ruth hitting these momentous homers was actually greater than the actual event. The actual description is really what did it,
Yeah.
Because it seemed like almost a pedestrian thing as he rounded the bases, just another home run by Babe Ruth,
Yeah.
But he realized that you could create an artistic imagery of these events with the written word.
Hey, Steve, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I know you're very well read. We've had you on before. You know your baseball history. Something happened this morning that's pretty interesting, and I want to get your thoughts on it. So this morning, the Senate Judiciary Committee came together, that's Republicans and Democrats, to question the legitimacy of Major League Baseball's antitrust exemption.
Oh, this goes back, I believe, to 1921, and baseball has always had a special exemption. And there was a TV program called After Jackie that is showing on MLB, or not MLB, ESPN right now, that talks about basically the three African-American players who came after Robinson who had the most impact: Bill White, Kurt Flood, Bob Gibson. And they focus on the Kurt Flood reserve clause.
Yeah.
And the reserve clause case, the Supreme Court went against Flood by 5-3 in 1972 and upheld the idea that baseball was not interstate commerce. I mean, if baseball is interstate commerce, I don't know what is, but it has always been considered the national pastime, not business or something, which has always been completely ridiculous.
So, Steve, if I'm not mistaken, the original antitrust being, granted to them, if I remember correctly, wasn't it a Supreme Court justice who was like a big baseball fan?
It was Kennesaw Mountain Landis, and it was an inside deal. He did what the owners wanted him to do, and then in payment for it, he was then hired as commissioner of baseball.
Yeah,
it was all inside baseball.
Where he
the
famous 1919 Black Sox scandal.
Yeah. In that case, it was the Federal Baseball Club versus the National League, and there's also a little something there that one of the Supreme Court justices was a Cubs fan.
So, that's right.
And was friends with the Cubs owner. So,
well, in the case of the Cubs, they might not be legitimate business,
Not this season, at least.
Yeah. 1906 or 1906 through 1908 they were, and then back in 2016 or something they were.
So what's just interesting about this, and just doing a little research, is that this was again brought up in Toulson versus the New York Yankees in 1953 and was shot down again. So we're seeing throughout time this being brought up and upheld, but now with social media, now with poor business practices, now what we've been seeing through Major League Baseball kind of be exposed to how it's treating its minor leaguers, like they can't even live. Now they threw them a bone this
I can
season.
tell you that for a fact.
Yeah, now the minor leaguers,
Yeah.
exactly. Now the minor leaguers got thrown a bone and they get player housing, but they're still not making great money. How do you think the public is going to react to this, and how do you think it might be different this time around, maybe the third or fourth time around?
Yeah, good point.
Well, did you say what was the decision this morning?
Well, there was no decision. It was a letter written to Congress by both Democrats and Republicans coming together on this.
I'm actually an attorney by training. I just don't practice it anymore, and I've studied some of this stuff back in the day. But just really, from a layman's standpoint, I don't see how you can say that it's not a business, or that it should be any more exempt from the only reason you exempt something like that is like, for instance, giving Donald Trump tax exemptions so he can build giant buildings in New York City. This kind of thing is done all the time. Mm-hmm. And you do it for the benefit of society. You do it for the benefit of business. It hires lots of people. So there are reasons for it. I mean, there's no legitimate reason to exempt it from others on its face. You do it because, okay, does some benefit outweigh?
Right, yeah,
man, there are tremendous benefits of baseball.
Hey, Steve, stay with us. We got to go to a quick break. Okay, we're going to continue this on. Okay, we're talking baseball. This is our trivia question theme. Which LA Dodger won consecutive NL batting titles in 1962 and 1963? And don't say the answer, Steve, yet. All right, stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here, along with FP Santangelo Jr., Russell Jackman, and our special guest, Steve Travers. Our first trivia question on baseball is, which LA Dodger won consecutive NL batting titles in 1962 and 1963? Anyone?
Tommy Davis.
Tommy Davis. Very nice. Good. We knew he was the historian.
I think he hit 346 in 62. I'm not sure what his average was.
Woo.
He had a great year in 62.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great player. Hall of Fame player, but he absolutely destroyed his knee in a slide in 1965. But still hit 300 for another 8 years for, he was in ball 4, he was an interesting character.
It's so funny because I can still remember what his baseball card looks like. I had a few of them. Go ahead, FP. You're gonna continue on with that.
Well, I want to get Russ involved with this too, because he practices law, of course. So do they have a base? So just resetting the table here, the Judiciary Committee this morning came together, sent a letter to Congress questioning the legitimacy of Major League Baseball's antitrust exemption. And they stated the two major reasons being the treatment of minor league players and the lack of pay, and the corruption within the international drafting system, and how players are getting paid really nothing to become professional players. So to Russ, I'll throw it to you. Do they have legitimacy in this claim? And do you see this going far and becoming a headache?
Yeah, no, of course they do. They no other sport has it. So it is something that, you pointed out was all done with backroom shenanigans to appoint the judge as a commissioner. I mean, it's a farce, and it was something, that, unfortunately, if you want to, talk about social mores and people's thoughts back in the 1920s, I mean, blackface was a form of entertainment. So, the people of that era were not exactly like the most forwards thinking or, positive individuals. And it's about time to correct that and bring, baseball into the 21st century, or even the 20th century, if you want to be, that correct, because all the other sports have been able to manage not, to thrive. I mean, the NBA doesn't have, an exemption like that, and things are okay there,
And the NFL. The NFL.
Yeah, I mean,
well, and remember this, baseball is, The other sports have some form of this, but not like baseball. Baseball has a minor league farm system that feeds the big leagues. The basketball, and football essentially have colleges. That's where they come from. There are some minor leagues and farm systems, but that's really where it comes from, especially football.
I think the G League players get compensated pretty well in the NBA, if I'm not mistaken. It's almost like in the practice squad.
I have a case to this day. I just had a Zoom meeting yesterday with a doctor for injuries sustained 40 years ago when I was with the Cardinals.
Wow.
And basically, when I had an injury, I went from being really kind of a prospect, to be honest with you. I had a good year, at least a good 3/4 of a season, which I was leading the league in ERA. And then I tore my rotator cuff. And the St. Louis Cardinals, essentially, because they hadn't given me a lot of bonus money, I'd kind of come out of nowhere, and boom, they just released me. They should have sent me to the Job Clinic, given me laser surgery, all that stuff. But so I have a case, and I'm probably going to get, a fair chunk of change in a workers' comp case.
And I was going to say, you got hurt on the job.
I got hurt on the job, and I still can't sleep all night because I've got sciatica and I've got injuries that are sustained from a baseball. And your dad played ball; he was a catcher. Certainly, he probably has, the same kinds of things. But getting back to the treatment of minor leaguers, I mean, the minor leaguers, as of a couple of years ago, were making barely more, if not no more, than what I was making in 1981 and 1982, which was nothing.
Yeah.
And certainly rents and expenses are greater now than they were then. So
especially this year.
And let me tell you, there was a tremendous amount. When you're talking about Dominican players, we've learned a lot of things about how poorly they're treated, and there's predatory scouts and coaches down there who prey on them and do things to them.
Listen, when you come from poverty, right? And unfortunately, a lot of these Latin American baseball players come from poverty. Like $5,000 is like $1 million to you. You don't know how screwed you're getting because they don't really understand the concept of economics and money. Yeah. So they'll be signing these bonuses for like $50,000 and thinking they're set for life.
Which they would be if they were living in the Dominican Republic.
They'll accept the money because they want to help their families immediately, right?
Yeah.
But this is still predatory, and they should be given more money based on U.S. standards. It's a U.S. business. So again, it's predatory.
Yeah, I mean, and you sign lots and lots of them for very small amounts, knowing that the percentage is that out of 1,000 of them, 2 or 3 are going to be great Major League Baseball players, and the rest. And if they've got a little bit on the ball, maybe they can get into baseball as a coach or a scout.
Okay, look at Yasiel Puig. I mean, he came from
Cuba.
Right? He's Cuba, but still, they're poor in Cuba, just like they
have no idea how to handle himself.
Yeah, but I got to think that because of his prospect, I mean, he was paid pretty darn well, wasn't he? Coming out.
Oh, sure. He got to the big leagues, Edward. Once you get to the big leagues, there's nobody's going to argue that major leaguers are not well paid.
No. I mean, but
it's all about the minor leaguers.
No, I'm trying to think of like when he first got. So I guess he just got straight in to the.
Well, he was a huge. As I understand his story, and I should write about this, but as I understand his story, he comes out of Cuba. He was a huge prospect.
Yeah.
They knew he was really good. They knew that he'd probably get to the big leagues. I understand that there were nefarious, I want to say even drug cartels that involved themselves in sort of getting him, because he didn't come straight to the United States. He came to like Mexico or someplace and then came up. And that some of these cartels may have been sort of, like in the old days, the mob would be behind a boxer.
I was going to say Sonny Liston. I was just thinking
it was a similar type of story. I can't confirm this story. These are sort of rumors. Who knows? But that's the story that they go, okay, when you get big money, you're going to pay us back. And apparently there was some issue like he wasn't going to pay him back when he when he got to the Dodgers and was making the big money. So I don't know what happened to him beyond that.
Yeah, it's too bad because, Sonny Liston, you think of him and you go, terrible, loses to Muhammad Ali. But you go back, I mean, that guy was a bruiser.
I was, I started as a screenwriter, Edward, and I worked for a guy named Edgar Sherrick, who actually, he started Monday Night Football, lost it in a power struggle with Arledge. And Edgar had me write some scripts back in the day, and he said, okay, you're going to write the Sonny Liston script. And it's going to be a big movie. And son of a gun, Edgar Sherrick passed away, and that was the end of my screenwriting career. And then I got into, books and stuff. But yeah, that would have been a big movie. I could have seen Denzel Washington doing it. This is the early 2000s, it would have been,
Or Jamie Foxx, since didn't he play Ali?
Yeah, Will Smith played Ali. Yeah, somebody like that. They were all at the right age.
Yeah.
And then Jamie Foxx is going to play Mike Tyson.
Oh, are they coming out with a Mike Tyson movie?
Yeah.
I'm going to eat your children.
Yeah, he was my. But it's funny. I know it's kind of hard to compare. Rocky Marciano compared to Jack Sullivan and all that, and Jack Johnson and Mike Tyson. But boy, I tell you, Mike Tyson in his day, to me, he's the scariest.
He was. I love him. I'm really happy for him that he pulled himself together. I think he probably got on meds, I think is what he had. He was bipolar or something. He had, manic depressive. I'm not sure what it was, but something was wrong with him. And he needed to, certainly getting pounded in the head all the time wasn't helping.
Yeah.
So he's pulled himself. He's a smart guy. I always thought he was dumb, but he's not. He's a very smart guy.
Yeah. Very business savvy too.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't know. I think Vern joined us, but he may have taken another call. Vern, are you there?
Hang on.
Hang on. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Hey,
hang on.
Grab.
Yeah, but Vern, hang on because we have to cut to a commercial break. All right. Second baseball trivia question is: Who led the 2000? Who led the 2000?
I gave it to the manager.
Hey, Vern, we still hear you there. I'm talking to giving it some.
Oh, you can hear me now?
We can hear you. Yeah. So hold on.
Great.
Okay. Who led the 2002 St. Louis Cardinals in home runs? All right. That's our trivia question. You can email Edward at sportsecon101.com the answer to this question. Who led the 2002 St. Louis Cardinals in home runs? All right. When we come back, we're going to continue on with Steve Travers, and our favorite Vern Glenn has also joined us. So that'll be awesome. There'll be, 5 of us on. That's awesome. And yet we're not interrupting each other. I mean, How talented are we, huh? All right. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here along with FP Santangelo Jr., our special guest, Steve Travers. Vern Glenn has joined us, and Russell Jackson.
That's right.
All right. Okay, so our second trivia question. Who led the 2002 St. Louis Cardinals in home runs?
Albert Pujols.
That is.
Yeah.
Okay. I figured I'd ask one easy one. Okay. So FP, you wanted to bring up the NBA championship because we had to replay a show last week, so we kind of missed not even talking about the NBA championship.
Well, yeah, we're in the Bay Area over here, and this team called the Golden State Warriors won an NBA championship 4th time in I don't know how many years. They're a good team. There's this guy named Steph Curry. Went to the parade. It was incredible. I thought there was only going to be a few 100,000 people. There was like 1 million. It was insane. It was crazy. They overtook the barriers and started following the parade buses. It was just anarchy. Really, really cool scene to see. Awesome for Steph Curry's legacy. And it was just an absolute joy to watch. Obviously, if you're a Boston fan, you don't think so, but they got such a bright future. It was a great series.
Yeah.
And, it was
they're an absolute dynasty. I think there's no question. One of the great sports dynasties of all time. And I don't say that lightly. That's
coming from a writer. Yeah, that's huge.
Well, the thing is, you've got to have at least a few players stay with the team, right? I mean, you've got there, like let's say David Lee, right? He hasn't been on the team since the first time they won, and he only played, I think, a few months into the league, but he had into that year. But you have Clay and Steph, and then Draymond. I mean, those are the main guys. So, very similar to Ruth and Gehrig, being the mainstay of the Yankees dynasty. So,
look at what this team has been through. Just 2 years ago, they only won 15 games.
Yeah.
Last year, they were eliminated in the play-in tournament with both Los Angeles and LeBron hitting a last-second three, and then Memphis, beating them and them not making the playoffs. And
they've had some injuries. I mean, Iguodala, is he going to retire?
He said never say never, and it sounds like he might run it back as a player coach again. He's just going to be on the injured list a lot. You'll see.
Yeah. I mean, how old is he now? 38, 39?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. You get to be
You'll keep on having some weird back injuries until the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, maybe I know this is controversial. Maybe he'll decide he wants to be a woman and then play in the NW.
What?
Thank you, FP. I'm with you on that.
Oh, they did a movie called Joanna Man. It's a good movie.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was kind of funny. Actually, did you hear about the 13-year-old young lady skater losing to a 29-year-old man who basically decided he was a woman for I don't know how long. Maybe he's still a woman, but
yeah, it sounds like in college baseball when we play the Mormon teams and they're all like 30 years old and we were like 19.
Yeah.
It was nice against guys, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I played.
Yeah, but, I mean, they're full-grown men compared to.
When I was at Redwood, we played the Taiwan national team. I think Edward, you might remember that. Those guys were not 18 years old; they were 21-year-old kids on steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so the game
these
was
were
close.
Taiwan guys. They were all 6'4", 220 pounds from Taiwan. I thought everyone in Taiwan was small.
Yeah.
Who are these guys?
Yeah.
Oh, they take baseball seriously over there.
Oh yeah.
Boy, did they ever.
I mean, look at the Little League. They, in fact, if I remember, Redwood just barely lost that game, right?
No, it was considered the greatest Marin County sporting event of the 70s. There was like 7,000 people at Redwood High School to see a game. I had to enter the game sort of like those pictures of the glory of their times, like with the fans. The fans were right up to the lines. There was no foul territory, and they had to part the way like Moses leading the Israelites, through the Red Sea, for me just to enter the game. But it was an amazing event. It was really, and it was there were a lot of political aspects to that game. It was in '77, and the reason they were doing it was because they were very concerned about being thrown to the wolves to make a deal with China. Very similar to what we're looking at today with Taiwan, very worried that they're going to be, overcome by the Red Chinese. And they wanted to sort of impress America. Hey, we're baseball players. We're very much like you. So they came over and with all these, these guys who they had to be ringers.
Doesn't it seem like Ukraine and Taiwan are the same from the standpoint of like they're just playing defense right now, right? I mean, you never hear Taiwan sending fighter jets over China to look at bombing them, right? Doesn't always
no, of course not.
Yeah.
Well, Ukraine's in full-blown war.
Yeah, but they're not. But if I'm not mistaken, are they attacking Russia, or are they just defending themselves?
Ukraine is.
I think they're defending themselves.
Ukraine? Well, Ukraine is they're moving into some. It's kind of similar like the Vietnam War with Cambodia. They are doing some attacking into sanctuary areas outside of Ukraine, just to disrupt the Russians.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they're targeting a lot of like oils and trains in Russian territory via like UAVs and stuff like that. But they're not attacking citizens like Russia.
Yeah, and Russia asked for this. This was something that they all started. So
Absolutely. So, hey, guys, want to talk a little bit of golf here, just like just a second. So, Brooks Koepka joining the LIV tour for
Oh, the Live Tour.
the LIV tour.
Yes.
For $100 million bonus. And I had put this out before I think the news came out. I said, won't the PGA have to raise its payout to keep its players? And then I think like a day later they came out with they are increasing the payout, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
They are increasing the pay. It's going to change the sport for the long term, and I think you're going to see a blueprint of other competitors as we talk about the antitrust exemption in Major League Baseball. Maybe in the future we might see like a Chinese investor, a billionaire investor, start trying to get NBA players away from the NBA at the tail end of their career. Now we've seen something like this with soccer here in the MLS with like David Beckham and other huge soccer stars overseas. We just pay them millions of dollars to come over here and basically have a retirement tour. So it'll be interesting to see if there's going to be other major sports leagues that follow suit and see that, okay, maybe if we can get lots of billionaires together from all over the world, maybe we can snatch talent and start our own league. And it'd be funny if it happened to Major League Baseball right after this major antitrust exemption pulled up, because I'm sure there's a lot of very wealthy Japanese, Latin American people that would want to start a league, maybe an international league.
Well, especially baseball, because it is such an international sport. And it goes back to capitalism, right? Supply and demand economics.
It's great. I think it's great. I think it'd be great if Major League Baseball had a challenger, so that way, you know, when the fans don't like rule change or they don't like the direction the game's going in, they have another product to watch.
Yeah.
But
well,
it'd be hard to beat Major League Baseball.
Baseball has gone in this direction twice and failed at it. The Federal League, 1914 to 15, was an attempt. And then the Mexican League started in 1946. They actually went so far as to sign Ted Williams to go down there, but I don't even think they ever played a game. It was broken up. It's interesting to note that the American Football League succeeded roundly, but other leagues haven't. The USFL and the XFL. There's a limit to it. There's so many great football. Obviously, in 1960. There were many more great football players than just were seen in the National Football League. There were many more, but there is a limit to how many there are who are truly great. And that's what you have to have in order to, like capitalism, supply and demand, however you put it, the fans will see if these guys are just as good as major leaguers, just as good as NFL players, they will go, they'll pay their money, and they'll become fans, you know.
Yeah, but there's a lot to be said about brand loyalty and people who are, you know, born Yankee fans and born Niner fans and so forth. And that you can't just get rid of. I mean, there are people that root for the front of the uniform and not the back. And so, you know, it's going to be hard. I mean, did you guys watch any of the XFL this year or the USFL that happened a couple of years ago? I didn't watch any of those games because they were pretty awful.
Let me put this idea in your head. I know we got to go soon. In about 10 years, a lot of airplane companies are saying there's going to be hypersonic planes, which means I can get from LA to London in 3 hours. Okay.
Wow.
When this happens,
good point.
It's going to be an international sports league, and the NFL is going to have a lot of competitors, and then Major League Baseball is going to have a lot of competitors. And the NBA, have a lot of
and I totally agree. I could see that. It'll be just like when jet travel came to the West Coast.
Yeah, it's going to change everything. So you got to think about that forward, and I think that's when we're going to see actual competitors for these sports.
Well, think about it. They had
like a playoff. Imagine playoffs. You know, between the the Cebu Lions and the New York Yankees.
It'd be awesome.
Los Angeles,
it'd be great. It's like a mini Olympics in a way. But yeah, if you remember,
it'd be fabulous.
A couple of football games they played in London, right? But because of it does 8 hours from New York or whatever, they're not going to be doing that every week. But like you said, with the airplanes potentially 3 hours, being able to go from LA to London or New York to London. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Well, you know what you can do. Like, for instance, I played in the Alaskan League, collegiate league.
Oh,
And what they did at that point, they added Hawaii to the league. And what they did was the Hawaii teams would come and play 3 weeks or 2 weeks, in Alaska.
Yep.
Then the Alaska teams would go over and spend so they didn't just play a 3-game series and move on. You were there for a long time. So you would go over there for a month and you'd play all your games in a single month.
Makes sense.
Yeah, imagine if there's a whole bunch of Europe teams, like in basketball all of a sudden, and then you play like the Italy team, you play the Spain team, you play the London team before you go back to the U.S.
Exactly.
This is very realistic to happen in the future.
I could do that. Also, mentioning Major League Baseball here before we cut out. Major League is apparently the only major sport allowing CBD sponsorship.
That's funny.
Yeah, I don't know why. I guess they get away from the steroids in baseball. They'll go to CBD.
Yeah, all the other ones are making money off of Bitcoin.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's true.
We're losing money now. Okay. Hey, guys, we're going to come to our third trivia question. Excuse me. Again, this is baseball. To me, this is an easy one, and I think you guys will know this one too. All right. What team once had the nickname the Gas House Gang? All right. In baseball. All right. We all
okay. All right.
Murderers Row was the Yankees, right? 1927, roughly. But what team once was nicknamed the Gas House Gang? All right, stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be coming back with some closing comments. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with FP Santangelo Jr., Russell Jackman, Vern Glenn, and our special guest, Steve Travers. All right, third trivia question, which Vern's going to answer. What baseball team once had the nickname the Gas House Gang?
I'm going to go with the St. Louis Cardinals.
That is correct. And in what era was that?
1946?
Actually, no, it was in the 1930s.
1930s, okay.
I don't know how they got that name. Steve, you're a historian.
I'm not sure how the name came. It's roughly it centers around 1934.
Yeah.
With Dizzy Dean, Joe Medwick, and Pepper Martin were stars. I don't really know. I probably from some vaudeville act of some kind.
Yeah, that's right. Because they're just getting into the talkies.
What the heck is a gas house anyway?
I don't know.
My God, I don't think they call them a team of gas house. 6 years before the Holocaust.
Yeah, exactly. And, it probably had to do with. I think they were just kind of sort of slapstick type of.
Oh yeah, they were definitely characters.
For sure.
Martin was known as the wild bull of the Osage.
Gotcha.
Dizzy Dean was a character.
And don't forget his brother Daffy.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, guys, we're going to cut out for today. Again, Steve Travers, thank you for joining us. Here is our thoughts for the day. And we have two attorneys on the phone here. What's a lawyer's favorite drink?
Subpoena. A lawyer's favorite drink
is subpoena colada.
Nice.
I knew Vern would.
All right.
Okay. And how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb?
The light bulb's going to want to change.
I was going to say one, but the light bulb is going to have to change. Very good, Russ. You got that. All right. Tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Better late than ever, America.
So,
Adios.